Hi, this is GP here, and with me I have Jijo, and today we are going to discuss something which most of the students have been asking for. That we have so many exams, we have to look at NMAT, we have to look at, in addition to CAT, look at also XAT, IIFT, SNAP also, and how do we manage preparation for all of them together, given the fact that some of these exams are before CAT. NMAT is a paper which starts before CAT on 14th October, goes on till 27th December. So when should I take the paper is another question. And that is what we are going to look at today, how to prepare for all these exams along with CAT, and when should you be taking NMAT, because for all of the exams, the dates are fixed.
Before I actually get started with the presentation, I would want to take your opinion, or rather, or a perspective on what would be your priority test. So some people decide on their own. So I would want to pick up this test. That's it. But what would be your advice in terms of the test that they must take? In this, is there any test that you would see that they must take?
Right. See, CAT is a must. Okay. Unfortunately, beyond CAT, many people miss out on a few important exams, especially XAT and IIFT. To me, NMAT and SNAP are optional. Why are they optional? Because they are giving you admission to good institute, but not the top tier. So if I look at tier 1, tier 2, I would not call NMAT and SNAP there. NMAT is the NMIMS Mumbai and SNAP. If I look at, which symbolises Pune, SCMHRD Pune and SIBM Pune, they are going to give you admission to colleges. These are colleges which have around, let's say, 25 to 30 rank kind of a thing. So, which is I've said these are optional. If you are looking at a good college, a top-notch college, then CAT, XAT, IIFT are the ones. Okay. Secondly, there's a small variation to this. Okay, the bare minimum should be CAT and XAT. Ideally, it should be CAT, XAT, IIFT. However, if you are a reserved category candidate, which means you have some kind of reservation in your portfolio, which means you are an EWS candidate, you happen to belong to SC, ST, OBC, NC, OBC, or a PWD candidate, then your exam portfolio should be CAT, IIFT, and SNAP. Why these three? For the simple reason, institutes through these exams will give you reservation. And XAT does not have any reservation. And for the same score, a college which has reservation, you will get into a higher college. Okay? For example, if you don't have a reservation, then SPJAN is a good option. But if you happen to be, let's say, a EWS candidate or NC-OBC candidate, then at 97th percentile, SPJAN will give you a call. But at 97th percentile, you'll get a call from IIM Lucknow, Bangalore, also possibly with some amount of work experience. So to my mind, reserve category candidates, your portfolio should be CAT, IIFT, SNAP. SNAP is your backup. If you are not a reserve candidate, your minimum has to be CAT plus XAT. Ideally, it should be CAT, XAT, IIFT. And SNAP, NMAT are optional. You can decide whether you want to go for those institutes or not, and then decide on taking these papers.
Yeah. So I mean, my take is take all tests. You are anyway prepared for all tests. Soon you'll see the take all tests. But you're very, very right, GP. Is that I'm basically going to say that if somebody is not going to take that, I'm not going to speak to that person. This is there is a wrong perception that people have that XAT is XLR, HR. I'm saying you are applying to a college. XLR has got a business management program which is rated among the top 5 probably in this country. Plus there are also other colleges that accept XAT scores. You have got XIM, you've got some other options as well. TAPME, IMT, what else? You have got Somaya. You've got a lot many options with respect to that test as well. So XAT is something that you must take. That's and of course IIFT as well. Yeah. So what we'll do 3 things. Number 1, we'll look at the timelines and especially answer the question when to take NMAT. Number 2, this is where we'll spend maximum amount of time, which is what is common, what is different, how to plan the prep. So very importantly, you're assuming that you're already preparing for the CAT. Then how do I look at other tests, and then end by giving you a prep schedule. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a plan of action. Starting with the timeline, GP, what I've done here is we have got NMAT from 14th October to 27th December. That's from here, going all the way till here. The CAT date is announced, which is on the 28th. The application form is also open. They have got IIFT, which they have announced on the 5th. The application form will soon follow. XAT is announced on the 2nd of January. Then you have a SNAP, which likely to be there. We're not too sure. So it's GP clearly mentioned that these two are the tests you must take along with the CAT. Now the question, and we are somewhere here, I believe we will be somewhere here when you're watching this video. So the question is, should I take my NMAT here in point number A? Should I take NMAT somewhere here in B, or should I take NMAT here in C? GP, what should you take?
See, couple of things. One is that you should take a paper when you're fully prepared. If you think you're unlikely to be fully prepared before December, then there's no point looking at NMAT now. For the simple reason, as you rightly pointed out, this year NM has said they will consider only the first attempt, they'll not consider the other attempts. Now, however, if I have to look at an ideal scenario, I would want to take NMAT before CAT. At least 3 weeks before CAT is what my preference is going to be, which means if I look at from a timeline till by 5th or 6th, 7th December, you should have taken NMAT, and the last 3 weeks should be kept only for CAT. So this is the broad ideal scenario, I would say, that look at taking NMAT in the initial first month itself, maybe end of October. Worst case, first week of November is what I would say. Don't take NMAT beyond that, because it is going to impact the preparation of CAT as well as IIFT. Remember, IIFT is just about a week after CAT, and you have to prepare for it along with CAT. Okay? Which means you should work out in such a way that ideally NMAT is done and dusted by end October, and next 4 weeks you can focus primarily on CAT, a bit on IIFT. And why I'm saying a bit on IIFT, because 5th December is the paper, and more importantly, the syllabus or and the kind of questions are asked in CAT and IIFT are very similar. So preparation of the two is going to be fairly easy together. Thirdly, when you do NMAT in October, there's a commonality in NMAT and IIFT, which is around the logical reasoning or the analytical reasoning section. That is any case being taken care of. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. So even if, let's say, for those, so what GP is saying is two things. If you think that you're not well prepared now, you will need some time. So December is fine. But ideally, the logic is that what GP is saying, that you can actually take it during this period of time, because come December you've got IIFT, then you want to focus on the important test known as XAT. This requires a separate, and the XAT requires a separate area that you need to focus on. There you don't want to then put the pressure of adding NMAT into the whole scheme of things. And that's what GP is saying. Other thing that I'll also say the GP is that even if, let's say, you are deciding to, or you're already picked up the date with December, which is completely fine. Let's say that you picked up 14th December, which is with the date that you picked up. It is absolutely important that you do the preparation somewhere here. You cannot say that if you're taking the, let's say, 14th of December, after CAT, I'm going to start the preparation for NMAT. So some work has to happen here. We'll tell you exactly what needs to work. That work you have to do such a manner that it takes care of a bit of IIFT as well, your preparation SAP as well, and in some sense also helps in CAT as well. So sort of comprehensive preparation that you can do. And even if, let's say, you got a date which is, let's say, 20th October, we still have considerable time to prepare for the particular exam. All you have to do is align to what NMAT is testing, and that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. And just one more thing, Jijo, December is a little tricky because the SNAP date has not been announced as yet. And while SNAP is typically second Sunday or third Sunday of December, but last year we don't know. All of us know how the schedule went, and this year again there could be something similar happening. So what that, even if I assume SNAP is going to be, let's say, 19th of December, and so when will you take NMAT? Because 5th December is IIFT. If 19th is SNAP, you have only 1 week in between. So you'll be running from one exam to other. It might work for some, but that's not the way I would like to take a paper. I would like to give each paper adequate focus.
Yeah, it's like if someone were to ask you, what is your hobby? In December, you can say, taking test. That's what's going to happen. All right, so I should also tell them whatever date that you picked, that's the date that you picked. It's okay whether you picked it home proctored or in the center. Let's stick to that now and look at the next part, which is what is common and what is different and how to plan the prep. Now the next slide is going to look very complicated, but let me actually. So what I've done in here is that I picked up the CAT, XAT, IIFT snap of last year. NMAT is a standardized test. Looked at the pattern. And let me actually start by this place here, which says that if you look at English, so CAT, of course, has VARC as a section, which is verbal ability and reading comprehension. 26 question, one section there. XAT also has verbal ability, and this is logical reasoning. So, but this logical reasoning is critical reasoning. So don't confuse this logical reasoning with the other one. So when XAT says verbal ability and logical reasoning, don't think that our logically it is critical reasoning, the short paragraph ones. So that is 26 question, which is considerable chunk of the paper. Here, IIFT has got 35 questions on verbal ability and reading comprehension. NMAT calls it language skills, 1/3 of the paper, 36 question. SNAP calls it general English, 1/4 of the paper, 15% out of the 60 question. So what you can see is English is there everywhere. So when you look at this analytical reasoning or logical reasoning, whatever name they call, you have and you have got CAT having a logical reasoning along with DI. XAT per se does not technically does not have analytical reasoning, but I think once upon a time there were analytical reasoning questions that used to come in decision making. Otherwise, those sort of analytical reasoning question is not seen in XAT these days. You have got logical reasoning question of IIFT, logical reasoning in NMAT, which is 1/3 of the paper, and ALR is analytical and logical reasoning of SNAP. So that's something that we find. Data interpretation, and I'll count data interpretation and QA together. QA is there everywhere. Even if you look at DI, DI is there in CAT. DI in XAT is a part of the quantitative ability. DI and LR is a section in IIFT. The data interpretation is a part of quantitative skills in NMAT. There is no separate section as a part of that. And data interpretation is a part of QA there. So, and then of course you can find QA everywhere. Quantitative ability, that's you can't escape it. Quantitative skills and quantitative ability. And therefore, these 4 areas is something that you will see that is across all the tests. Then getting into decision making. DM is decision making. Decision making is something that is unique to XAT as an examination. This is where a situation is given or a case study is given, and then you're asked to make some decision or understand the decision. One type of question, which is a shorter version of this, is called the course of action. A problem, what is the likely course of action that you take? But XAT has got a longer version of the particular paper. That's only in XAT. And there is GK. The GK is there in 2 examinations. One is XAT and one is IIFT. IIFT GK is counted, while XAT GK is not counted in the first stage. The paper has got 2 parts, which is part 1 and part 2. I think GK gets counted in the second stage, but GK is something that you'll have to do. So at the face of it, look at that out. From a bird's eye view, I'm doing English, I'm doing analytical logical, I'm doing DI, I'm doing QA. So basically I have to do DM, basically I have to do GK, and life will be set. Or is it? Is there something else that I must know? So GP, I want you to help the students out, and let's start one paper by paper and your take. Let's start with XAT, GP.
Okay, Gijo, the most important thing that you have already highlighted with respect to XAT, that LR is not logical reasoning the way you see in CAT. It is critical reasoning, and so it is verbal reasoning which is being checked out in this case. So this is a verbal section, and if you think CAT passages are difficult, then you are going to be really having a difficult, tougher time when you look at RCs of XAT. XAT is a much more difficult level of RC in terms of readability as well as questions. It is not only the readability of passage you will struggle with, the questions, the choices, the way they are structured is also going to be challenged. This is a difficult verbal section. Possibly among all the MBA entrance exam in India, this will be the one which you need to work most. So as Gijo said, while it is verbal, it is English, it is RC, it is of a higher order of difficulty, and this is where you need to practice. But you can park this thing for post CAT. And because between CAT and XAT you have a month, so we can look at it at that point of time. Second thing is Quant. I'll come to decision making in the end. Quantitative aptitude is similar to CAT. At one point of time, there used to be a significant difference between the Quant you got in CAT as well as XAT. But now they are almost the same. In fact, the level of difficulty of XAT quantitative aptitude has come down over the years, and now you can say both are almost the same. XAT being maybe 5% more difficult, but by and large, not much of a gap between the two. Decision making is as you said, something which is unique to CAT, unique to XAT, and is probably the most enjoyable section of this paper. Why do I call it enjoyable? Because as far as I am concerned, I have never had to prepare for this. I would read, understand the logic, based on the logic that I want to apply, take a course of action and move on. Okay, but apparently most students find it very, very difficult, and this is the section which kills the chances of many students making it to XLRI. Okay, and which is what forced Gijo and me to launch a program called DM1000. And again, something we can discuss at the time of preparation, which is after CAT. Okay? GK, however, is something which you need to start preparing now itself. Not only because it is a part of XAT and IIFT, but more importantly, GK takes time to be built up. Your knowledge of current affairs will take time. And when you go for the interviews, this is going to be extremely, extremely helpful. Your interview preparation will have a significant component of GK, current affairs, and understanding of what is happening in Afghanistan and why is it happening. That will be important. Okay? So please start preparing for it now itself. Others you can park for later. Okay? But I hope that gives you an idea of how XAT is different from CAT. Difficult verbal, similar quant and DI. DI actually could be same level as CAT, and DM is a completely different cup of tea, which has to be looked at a later stage. And GK, Gijo said that it is not counted in stage 1. Even stage 2, at times one feels that it is not counted, and it is only XLRI which looks at this particular section. Other institutes don't look at it at all. They go purely by percentile based on part 1. Because we have seen many students with low scores in GK making it to XLRI Jamshedpur in the final list. So frankly, I've never understood why they're asking GK, and why do they need to give 15 minutes for 25 questions? Is another mystery that none of us have been able to solve.
Few other things, GP. One thing that I would want you to discuss is this 165 minutes. Therefore, this number of questions is 75 questions. 75 questions, you get 165 minutes, and I can run around the section. There is no sectional time limit. We have in the CAT 76 question with 120 minutes, and there is fixed time. And therefore, that should make XAT a slightly more pleasant as a test than CAT, at least from that level, at least. Right?
It does make it, because this is the only paper in which you will not be rushing through questions. It is a paper in which you can sleep for 5 minutes between sections if you want to. Okay, so take one section, doze off for 5 minutes, get up, refreshed, and start the next section. That is possible only in this paper. However, one still needs to remember that this is not a section in which you can afford to waste time. Okay, verbal will take time. Again, I'm repeating it. To me, for most of the students, it is verbal. DM, you'll do it very fast. You'll do questions incorrectly very fast. Let me say it this way, because many people struggle with it. But verbal, to read, to understand, to finish the section, don't be surprised if you are taking 45, 50, even 55 minutes. Okay, so that will be the case out here. But yes, by and large, this is a paper in which you don't need to struggle for time. You can comfortably read the question and take time to understand and then mark the answer. And the students who are good in quant, or sorry, not so good in quant, for them this is a blessing. Because for these 28 questions, even if you have to do 13, 14 questions, you spend 1 hour, 70 minutes do 13 questions, you are done for the day. Okay, so that is what is important as far as this paper is concerned. Okay?
So basically, what you've got 165 minutes. Let's say that I spend about 60 minutes here. I have 105 minutes. Let's say if I spend another, let's say 55 minutes here. So that still leaves me with how many?
50 minutes for DM.
For 50 minutes for DM. So I can still afford to get, let's say, 40 minutes there and 70 minutes there and 40 minutes there. So this is a paper that does not pain you much with respect to this. Therefore, you will. So though the issue, therefore, will boil down to whether or not you have the basic skill set to handle the question that is there. So this paper will not rush. One other thing that I'd like to point out, GP, here is that XAT has got 2 programs. One is they have a business management program, and there is HRM program. In the HRM program, the cutoff for QA DI is about 6 marks, 7 marks now. And for the DM program, I think it's about 11. So
yes, so in percentile terms, it is about 70 percentile for the HR, for quant, and 90 percentile for the BM.
Yeah. Before we get to IIFT, GP, the marking scheme, if you look at CAT, has got +3 for each correct answer, -1 for the wrong answer, and no mark is deducted if you leave the answer
Yes.
unanswered. Last year, and I think they started about 3 years ago, this whole business of negative marking for questions that you don't attempt.
Yeah.
And this happens basically +1 for every question that you get correct, -0.25 if you get it wrong, and if you leave a question after 8 question overall. There is no negative marking in GK. So for the first 3 part, after you leave all the questions, if there are 8 questions, beyond that, every question gets -0.1. So GP, should they care?
Okay, let me take an example. 75 questions, I think it was 75. Yeah, it was 75 questions last year. Let me assume you attempted 45 questions in the paper. Okay, most people do closer to 50. Let me take 45 questions, and you left 30 questions unanswered. Out of these 30, first 8 you learn there's no penalty. For the remaining 22, you will lose 2.2 marks. Spread over 3 sections on an average 0.7, 0.75 marks per section. Is it really worth taking a chance? To my mind, a 0.25 negative is better than is not better than 0.1 negative. Okay, so if I don't know the question, I'm going to ignore this. I have always been very clear: ignore the negative marking for unattempted question. Don't let this change your behavior, because if you attempt and get a negative, you are not able to solve. You will end up with a -0.25. So you don't attempt to save 0.1. You attempt only if you know the question how to solve. Otherwise, you leave it. You and live with that -0.1. You would be better off rather than getting a -0.25.
Yeah. So that's our XAT. We'll, of course, in the subsequent slide that we go forward, we look at the type of questions and other things. So let's move to IIFT. IIFT last year had these 4 sections, but I also remember IIFT, which has got 6 sections. So
Yes.
they also had cases where VA has picked one section, RC another section, DA another section, LR another section, QA another section, GK another section, which were, they had that. Sometimes they combine different things together as well. And plus, they had different marking scheme every year. GP, what's going on with IIFT?
Hey, IIFT has been, I've always believed this is the only aptitude test in India today. This is the only paper which is full of surprises, and it's a single slot exam. So the second slot, it is not that the first slot is an advantage or disadvantage. Everyone takes the paper in a single slot. Secondly, you don't know whether it is going to be 4 section or 6 section. How are 6 section created? Okay, sorry, you have written the 6 sections. 4 sections are created by combining VA and RC. That is one combination. Another combination is DILR get combined, and the third combination is DI and QA get combined. So we have had 6 section papers. 6 section papers. We have had 4 section papers. Okay, so everything goes. You don't know what kind of paper you are going to get. Secondly, while last year the marking scheme was very, very comfortable, 3 marks for every section if you get it right and -1, but only in GK is a +1.5 and -0.5. There have been years in which the marking scheme has been different for different sections. Verbal is 0.5 marks per question. GK is 0.5 marks per question. RC is 0.75 marks. RC is 1 mark has also happened. Quant has always been 1 mark. So the only thing fixed in IIFT has been that about 100 odd questions, 120 odd questions to be done in 120 minutes. That has been the thing. Though last couple of years has come down a little. But by and large, it has been Quant will be a 1 mark per question, or in the current scheme, 3 marks per question, and GK 0.5 marks per question.
So sorry, you're right. I think I got the total wrong. How much is this be? 30, 35, 100,
600.
no?
Yeah, 300
Right.
marks, 100 questions. Okay. So that has broadly been yes. No, sorry, 30, 30, 65, 65, and 40, 105, 110 questions. Okay.
This should be 100 and, correct, 110 question will be 300 mark because of the 1.5 marking that is there. Yeah.
Yes. Right. So by and large, it has been 110 to 120 questions to be attempted in 2 hours. But the marking scheme you have to discover when you look at the paper. You don't know what is going to. So when you look at the paper, first you need to understand what is happening to you, what is going to happen this year to you. You need to first check out how many sections are there, which sections are combined. Because if there are 6 sections, you have to worry about 6 sectional cutoffs. If there are 4 sections, you have to worry about 4 sectional cutoffs. For example, in the last year paper, DILR, DI was difficult, LR was easy. You don't have to do anything. And similarly, if they were VA and RC combined, you can decide I'm better off in RC or better off in VA and work accordingly and don't worry too much about the other part. But if it is 6 section, you need to get 6 sectional cutoffs. That is something you need to remember.
Right. Other a few things about this. So the one important thing about IIFT, therefore, is a paper which really tests your management, all sort of management. I think not just time management, all kind of management. You have to make the decision there. And one thing that people worry GP about in IIFT is the whole GK business. There are 20 questions, 1.5 marks each. So what would be the cutoff like here?
See, GK, the cutoff varies from 1 question to 4 questions. That's the way to look at it. If you get 1 question right, there have been, okay, this last year it was a 1.5 mark. Earlier it used to be a 100 mark paper with 0.5 marks for GK and 1 mark for maths and quant and the others floating around. Now, there have been years, 1 year I remember the cutoff for GK was 0.49 marks. Okay. How do you get 0.49? I don't know, but that was the cutoff for GK, which basically meant you get 1 correct answer in GK, you have cleared the sectional cutoff. Usually it is 4 questions, which mean 2 marks, or in this case, 6 marks. Okay. Highest I have seen is 2.5 marks. So 5 questions is the upper limit for cutoff as far as GK is concerned in the last 10-12 years, maybe beyond that also. So from my point of view in GK, what you need to be very clear, if I can get 5 correct answers, first I'll mark only answers to those questions that I'm 100% sure of. Second, if I can get 5 correct answers, I am not going to do anything. I'll leave and move on. Okay, don't take chances, because what happens? You get 5 correct answers and you get 4 wrong answers, and suddenly you find you're below the cutoff. So don't take a chance. Large number of people will be able to clear. Almost everyone will clear. Let me say sectional cutoff of all the other sections and overall cutoff also. Many students will miss out on the IIFT call because they miss out on the GK sectional cutoff because of GK here. Let me mark everything and hope something will work. That will not work.
So IIFT is a slightly different paper. You've got 110. So let's assume still is about this 20 question of GK would probably get done in about 3-4 minutes. So you have the remaining how much is that? 90 questions to be done in about a couple of hours. So that's so slightly other couple of hours. So it will be more. I think it is a paper which will, I will not call it speed at least, but you have to pace this section really well and not get stuck in anywhere with respect to IIFT. So IIFT will require you to change gear after the CAT, change gear, and then that will require another changing gear. So in your preparation, you be sure that each paper you have a particular plan of action, or keep it very simple. If I know the question, I'll mark. If I don't know, I'll skip. So that also works always.
If I can say, XAT is like a test match. CAT is a 1 day. IIFT is a T20. You just have to start looking at the question, mark, move on, don't think. XAT will give you time to think and, okay, as I said, doze off and start all over again. That is possible in XAT. Not in CAT, not in IIFT.
Yeah. Next, we have NMAT. NMAT, mind you, is a test that is created by GMAT, which is Graduate Management Admission Council, the body that also conducts GMAT as an exam. So NMAT as a paper is standardized. Last year, they came out with a change of equal number of questions in the 3 sections. This is where you also have differential time. Okay, you have a strict time limit, 28 minutes for the 36 questions of language skills, which is English, 15 minutes for the 36 questions of quantitative skills, which is math, and 40 minutes for this 36 question on logical reasoning. So here you have total about 108 questions and 2 hours. So this also a paper which you don't have too much time. But one good thing is there's no negative marking. But GP, I think students should know one thing about NMAT as a paper is the interface of test interface, right?
That's right. And it is slightly different, and it is irritating to say. It is also very, very irritating as far as NMAT is concerned that you cannot go back to a question. CAT, XAT, IIFT, you have the flexibility to go back to the question within the section at least. In case of XAT, you can go through any year. In case of IIFT, again, there are no sectional time limits. In NMAT, you read the question, you mark the answer, you move to the next one. Or if you leave the question, you can't come back to it. So you can only do next. There's no reverse button. So review is not an option. So in NMAT, please make sure you don't waste your time in a question with, or don't think that I will come back to this question. Okay, that is not going to happen at all. You look at the question, read the question, and please remember there is no negative marking. If there's no negative marking, even if you don't know the answer, please mark something. So you could start at the beginning of the paper, tell yourself, if it is verbal, I will mark C or B or whatever alphabet you like. Just stick to one thing so that in the paper you don't waste your time thinking, so okay, see this question, do I do B or C or D? No, it has to be pre-decided. If I don't know the answer to the question, I will mark this particular alphabet. This will help you save time. It is not going to improve your probability of success. All it will do is it will save you time, and hence by the time you reach the paper, you will be able to read the end of the paper. Otherwise, every question will waste another 10 seconds trying to decide.
In the GMAC, NMAT with GMAC website, they have mentioned that this is adaptive. They've not clearly mentioned adaptive. They kind of suggested it is adaptive. But anyway, the paper reflects. So in the CAT test interface on the right hand side, you have all these question button. You can go in any fashion that you want. You will get to see everything. Here, nothing. All you see is a question there and a button which calls next. All you can do is move next. And the worst thing that happens, GP, with respect to NMAT is that you don't reach the last questions.
Yes, you don't reach the last question if you waste time. And which is why I said, please decide in advance what will you do. Now, there's a couple of interesting things about this. You mentioned adaptive. Frankly, I'm not sure how it is adaptive. Last year, to test this out, what I did was in the verbal section, not in verbal and logical reasoning section. In input output question, there were some 7, 8, or 9 questions. Some in the middle, something like 10 to 20 or 12 to 20. All of them, I just kept on marking B or C in each one of them, kept doing next. Did not even spend 10 seconds in each of them. The only time I took was marking that answer and next. Okay? After input output, the next question which comes was not easy. It was still difficult. If it's an adaptive paper with 7, 8 questions, I have done a random marking. I am reasonably sure most of them would have been wrong. Out of those 7, 8 questions, maybe 1 or 2 would be right. How come I am getting a difficult question after that? If it is adaptive, it should come down. So it is not adaptive in the sense we understand, which means you mark a wrong answer, you'll get an easier question. You mark a right answer, you'll get a difficult question. It is not that kind of adaptive. What they possibly mean is they have certain benchmark questions based on which they will assess the difficulty level and hence come out with the score. Okay? So that is what it means. So I will ignore the word adaptive completely. And I will say from a student perspective, what you need to be doing is tell yourself 2 things. One, I need to come to the end of the paper, definitely. So let me not waste time. If I know the answer, I'll mark it and move on. If I don't know the answer, I will still mark and move on because there's no negative marking. I don't know the answer. I should be over with the question in 5 seconds. For example, a vocabulary question. It's a 5-second question if you know the answer. It's a 5-second question if you don't know the answer. Spending time will not give you the answer. Okay. Similarly, the other thing. Secondly, remember that in language skills, RC is at the end. In quantitative aptitude or quantitative skills, DI is in the end. So many times what happens, the last 3 or 4 sets of DI, the last 12 odd questions will be DI, last 12 odd questions will be RC. If you spend time initially, then you'll suddenly struggle with RC or DI, and which is the scoring part of this paper. So time management is critical. Don't waste time. Remember, you can't go back. So if you know, mark. If you don't know, mark and move on because there's no negative marking.
Right. So again, when you look at in that sense, you see that IIFT and NMAT requires you to do that bit of the thing wherein you're not getting stuck in a question. You don't do extra bit of analysis with questions. But NMAT put in added pressure because you just cannot come back to this. So that's with respect to NMAT. What to say about Snap? Because Snap last year, I don't know what they did, GP.
No, Snap has always been a paper which I have found very, let's say, I'll say somewhere along the line, it seems to me that the institute does not care much about the paper. This is one paper where I have seen multiple mistakes. And I think they went online only because when they were doing an offline paper, the paper would come out, people would be able to point out, see, you have made a mistake. So every year I have seen them making mistakes. I remember one year, that was long ago, parajumble questions. there were some statements which were starting with the capital letters, others were not. Some statements which were ending with a question mark or a full stop. Now, can I not do that try jumble fast? Now, those are the kind of things which I've seen out here, and I've seen multiple errors. Okay, but I am hoping that over the period they have been able to reduce that. Last year I did not take the paper, so I'll not be able to comment on this part. However, for Snap, please remember, reasoning has always been an important section for them. Whenever they have done the paper, this is a section, and here also you can see larger number of questions. There have been times when reasoning is 2 marks, other questions are 1 mark. So that kind of a thing has also happened. English is not an issue, and time is not going to be a problem out here. And with negative marking, the basic rule of attempting only if you know the answer is something which you need to be going ahead with.
So here again, GP, you've got 60 questions to be done in 60 minutes. So won't time be a factor?
It won't be an issue because the level of difficulty is fairly low. And general English also has something called vocabulary, grammar, which does not take time. So those 15 questions, and last year, remember, there was no RC. Earlier years, there used to be one RC, if I remember correctly, with about 7, 8, or 10 questions. So, and the passages are easy to read. So it is exactly opposite of XAT. XAT passages you will struggle through, these passages you will breeze through. You'll just quickly do the passage and move on. Last year there was no RC. Hopefully, we don't know this year what pattern they will go ahead with. We'll have to wait for the notification. And quantitative aptitude again is very, very easy. One thing about quantitative aptitude, arithmetic and algebra are the mainstay of all these papers. CAT, SAT, IIFT, NMAT, SNAP. Arithmetic and algebra are what you have to be focusing on more than anything else. And when it comes to NMAT, SNAP, and IIFT, it is more of arithmetic algebra and less of the others. Okay, so please remember, this is where you need to focus on, especially for the other 3 papers.
Okay, so we'll get into depth of what GP is saying, exactly what you need to focus on. But I believe that at this point in time, the understanding that you're getting is that while every paper has got by and large the same areas, the challenges that you will face in each of the paper is different. The way in which you want to tackle the paper is very different. So now you have a mindset of the CAT. Therefore, these examinations will require you to have a different mindset. Not much, but if you kind of focus on the fact that, look, at the end of the day in the CAT, what I'm going to do is, if I know something, I'll mark. If I don't know, I'll not mark. I will not do unless it is that should still work. So therefore, let's get into deep dive now in each of this section, and therefore what we want to do is to help you understand exactly what is that you should look at, you should do in your preparation, starting with quantitative ability, something that GP just mentioned, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, numbers, and modern math. So let me first show this distribution. Here is number of questions. This is of 100%. Let me start with this. I've also here added data interpretation and data sufficiency, just to give you a sense of what that math paper looks like. NMAT has got data interpretation as a part of quantitative aptitude. There is data sufficiency. Data sufficiency is where you have questions like 2 statement is given, statement 1 is sufficient, statement 2 is sufficient. Then you have SNAP has got data interpretation as well. XAT data interpretation is a part of your QA section. For other exam, CAT data interpretation separate. At least IIFT last year data interpretation was separate. So let's look at the core math question. You see arithmetic, which is in black. You know that in the CAT roughly about 10 questions comes. XAT is 5 out of the ones that you can see, of the 5 out of close to about 20, the 7 questions. IIFT has got 11 arithmetic. NMAT has got 10. And SNAP has got 8. Though GP will say, actually, this is not 10, GP, this is 22. Wouldn't NMAT? Arithmetic?
Yes, two things. First, that it is 5 out of 28, which includes 9 DI. So if you're looking at only the quant portion, it is 5 out of 19. Okay. So it is might look low, but for the paper it is high. Now when I'm looking at NMAT is 10 of arithmetic, but another 12 of DI, and DI is the conventional DI, calculation, percentage change, averages, ratios. It is not the LR which you see in CAT. It is not the DILR data set which you see in CAT. So it is your basic arithmetic skills which are effectively getting tested, and which is why Vijo is absolutely right. I always say, out of these 36, 2/3 of the paper is going to be arithmetic, which is 10 of arithmetic, and 12 DI is also arithmetic. So 22 out of 36 is almost 60% plus, or 2/3 almost, and which is why I would say Arithmetic is what you need to be focusing on for NMAT. Time and work, time, speed, distance, ratio, proportions, etc., etc.
Yeah. So if you sorry, even if you look at Snap, Snap has got 8% arithmetic, and then you have usual algebra. You've got 9 in CAT, 4 in here, 4 in IIFT, couple of them in NMAT. This is actually not fixed. There could be variation here, but the amount of DI that you get, DS that you get, it would be there, that percentage. But within arithmetic, within maths, there could be slight variation. But this is what you normally see, and we can see number system as one everywhere. By and large, if you actually look at all the paper GPA, it looks by and large the same distribution, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. A similar kind of a thing. The difference will be in the level of difficulty. So when you're looking at NMAT and SNAP, the level of difficulty will be half of CAT. Okay. So if I say CAT is a level of difficulty 10, okay, then NMAT and SNAP will be 5, 6, that level. Okay. XAT is going to be somewhere around 10 only. In some cases a little higher, in some cases a little lower. Okay. IIFT again is going to be somewhere around 6. So IIFT, the level of difficulty is less. But the biggest problem in IIFT is they have a habit of giving stories. Okay. A person had contacted COVID and was asked by the doctor to isolate himself. So to isolate himself, he decided to check into a hotel which was 283 kilometers away. They'll have a stupid story which you have to read through to understand, okay, what is that he wants to know. So it's time wastage which happens, but the questions are easy. Because by and large, IIFT questions are not difficult. And the same thing will be true for NMAT SNAP. XAT and CAT are higher level of difficulty, but IIFT, NMAT, SNAP, by and large arithmetic, basic algebra, and low level of difficulty.
So your CAT preparation GPA should be enough here, I think.
Absolutely. The only thing is you need to, from an NMAT point of view, start taking a few section tests possibly, because you have to say, okay, in 40 minutes, I have to do 52 minutes, if I remember correctly, NMAT, for those 40 or 36 odd questions. I've just forgotten.
This is 52 minutes for 36 questions.
Yeah, 52 minutes for this. So you need to get used to doing that. And because remember, you can't come back to the question. So in your aspiration account, the NMAT mocks which will be there, NMAT section test which will be there, they'll follow the same pattern. So they will not allow you to go back. You have to mark the answer and move on, mark the answer and move on. You look at the question, you leave it, you can't come back to it. So get used to that pattern. Otherwise, there's no rocket science to this paper.
So same.
Absolutely.
So just get used to the pattern. That should be good enough. Data interpretation GP.
Yeah, SNAP NMAT as we talked about is calculation based. SNAP also is calculation based. And what we need to remember, apart from CAT, no one else is going to give you a calculator. So if you have done your Vedic maths, etc., if no, please do it. Please brush up on your calculation skills, because no calculator available. And even in CAT, I've always felt that online calculator is a waste of time. It is irritating. So I don't use it personally, but I know many people are able to use it, so good for them. But SNAP, NMAT, IIFT, XAT, no calculator, so work on your calculation skills, focus on your basic arithmetic. Again, that percentage calculation, look at the choices, look at eliminating choices. So all that is something going to be very, very important for all these papers. Okay? When it comes to XAT I will say is a DILR which is similar to that of CAT. Okay? It is going to be logic based. It will have numbers also. It might include, and it might be some very innovative sets which you may not have seen at all. In fact, in one of our mocks, we recently had a data set of time zone change train journey. A similar set came in XAT a couple of years ago. Okay, so very good DILR sets from XAT, and on what you are doing for CAT will suffice for XAT in terms of DILR. For IIFT, the DI part, and SNAP and NMAT DI part, a good source is obviously going to be old IIFT papers, but more importantly, it is going to be CAT 1990 to 2008 papers. The DI of CAT 1990 to 2008 was basic calculation oriented DI. Percentage change, etc., and that is what you could do. The other thing with respect to IIFT is, specific to IIFT is, that the DI section is usually very, very calculation intensive. It's a huge amount of data. At times, you need to scroll up and down a couple of times to go through the data and to understand what it's all about. When it used to be a paper-based test, A4 size booklet used to be there, and one page used to be data, huge graphs, and then irritating graphs. And they will typically not ask which is the highest or the lowest, which is the third highest, which is the second lowest. Now you need to do that stupid thing, each of them. So IIFT, DI is something which you practice, but you go with the mindset that if I have time, I will do it. If it is a DI LR combined, I'll focus more on LR, less on DI. That is not guaranteed, but if it happens, that is one strategy you could use. But before you do that, you still need to see which of the two is easier. Because year before last, DI was easy, LR was difficult. Then you had to do more of DI. And that is why I say that IIFT tests your temperament more than anything else. It checks out whether you can handle this difficult situation or not. Okay, but back to the topic, calculation is something you need to work on. Please make sure you're thorough with it.
Yeah. So first of all, I am the one GP who use calculator in CAT. I'm not. I don't know Vedic math, but the point is that you need to be comfortable with calculation, comfortable with estimation, whichever way you want to look at it, because that is something that will be important when it comes to NMAT and SNAP. To add to what GP is saying, that old IIFT papers are available, right? All IIFT papers are available. They are published, the papers, right?
They
right,
don't
GP?
publish, but they are available on our website. Of
Yeah,
late, they
okay.
have started releasing it also, and these are available on our website.
So all IIFT papers available website, and that is a good source. For NMAT, I would of course recommend the official guide for NMAT, which is the guide that is released by NMAT by GMAC. Official guide. I think NMAT is a very standardized set. That's something you can do. You can also probably look at in your Funda book or whichever prep material that you have. The initial chapters usually will be the ones which has got pie chart, bar graph, line graph, and NMAT will have combination of this, sometimes sort of caselet as well. That's something that you might want to do, because I think that while preparing for the CAT, we probably, I'm guessing, GP, these or all of them have not sort of forgotten to do these kind of normal data interpretation questions.
Normal DI people tend to ignore. They assume they will be able to do it. The fact is, you still need to practice it. Otherwise, in the paper, you'll struggle.
Yeah, that's it. But the logic based and logic based question, anyway, your CAT preparation is taking care of that.
Absolutely.
So data interpretation prep plan, as we discussed, is about you getting additional thing that you have to do is the actually do standard data interpretation questions. What else can I say? The standard data interpretation question is what you need to do.
Old IIFT and old CAT papers should be old IIFT and old CAT papers, and plus the standard stuff which you just said.
So IIFT the old ones, the 1990s, the CAT papers. NMAT official guide is something that you should, if you're serious about NMAT, I think you should just buy this book. That's nothing else to take care of. And then of course this the section test and the mock test that you get. English two kinds. One is, I have said, certain kind of questions are comprehension based. So reading comprehension is comprehension based. It is not testing your knowledge. The paragraph based questions, paragraph summary, odd sentence, paragraph completion, or paragraph based question. And then you have these questions which are knowledge based. Grammar would be knowledge based, vocabulary would be knowledge based. And this is where you see a difference. So in Quant, what we have seen is we have not seen too much of difference with respect to at least the type of questions in Quant. Maybe there is some difference that you see in data interpretation. But when it comes to English, you see this variation. So this black is in reading comprehension. This brown is paragraph based ones. Grammar base is blue. Vocabulary base is green. This is the percentage distribution of this one. This is actual distribution of the question. You can see, of course, that CAT as a paper is a paper which is fully comprehension based paper. This is when I'm looking at from 2015 to 2020. Before that, obviously, it had some vocabulary grammar questions. At least the recent CAT is fully comprehension based paper. And our preparation, we are preparing like this. And when you get to XAT, you see there is vast majority is comprehension based, with a substantial chunk is in fact reading comprehension. Vast majority of the paper is comprehension based. There are few questions on vocabulary that grammar they ask. You come to IIFT, almost about 45%, about 50%, slightly above that is comprehension based. Then you have questions on grammar and vocabulary. This can change. Plus, like GP said, it is possible that the section can be either VA-RC or VA-RC combined. So this can be probably broken down into these two sort of section as well. That's also possible. When it comes to NMAT, you have comprehension based, which is RC and this, which is about for 45% of the paper. Then you have all the remaining ones, and Snap for some reason did not give an RC at all. So, well, that's the story. Now the question is, GP, at this point in time, people will start worrying a lot. How do I think that people may not have huge kind of worry with respect to grammar, but I'm guessing, GP, they have the worry with respect to vocabulary, what to
But
do.
why do people worry about vocabulary is something that I've never been able to understand. Many people come back and say, I don't do well in comprehension because my vocabulary is an issue. Now that's being stupid. And secondly, when you look at vocabulary based questions, how many are there and how many words can you mug up? I am not a fan of saying pick up a word list and mug up. At best, what you can do is pick up a normal list kind of book and 30 in those 30 days finish off the book as per the lesson plan and build your base of vocabulary. Now, what after that you need to get into the habit of reading, and the more you read, the more contextual vocabulary you'll get. Which means you may not know the exact meaning of the word, but in context you know what it broadly means, and that is what is required for the paper. So if you are reading regularly, it should be good enough. So vocabulary, I would not worry about it. After how many words can you mug up? Okay, 5,000, 6,000, and how many of them will you remember when it comes to the crux? Okay, so to me, vocabulary is a waste of time. Don't do that. And even if you look at the number of questions, okay, if I look at the vocabulary based question, this is green. Look at IIFT and NMAT. Now,
I
when we
have
say
this here.
vocabulary based,
Sorry, okay, sorry. So, like,
yeah, 11 and 9, yeah.
uh,
Okay, look at this. So we are looking at 11 and 9 questions. They are not all synonyms, antonyms. Some of them will be synonyms, antonyms. Some of them will be meaning of the word. Some of them are going to say fill in the blanks. But if it's a fill in the blank, then from the context you can fill it up. Okay. So to me, vocabulary is not something you need to worry about. Focus on other parts which are more definite. Comprehension. Focus on understanding the word in context, which means the vocabulary from a fill in the blanks point of view will be done correctly.
okay. Starting with one question is prep for RC. So your preparation for RC when it comes to CAT, by and large, should take care of other exams.
Yes.
Your when you look at reading comprehension, the XAT reading comprehension passages are actually shorter, but
Yes.
the questions are very interpretation questions. So you
Yes.
get a passage and then suddenly ask a question. If a principal of the college with having that philosophy will think what? So you have all sort of things. There's one poem that asks in that. So that comes out with a slightly different challenge, but it is also very similar to CAT. IFT, I've seen passages which are slightly longer but easy to read, right, GP? So
Yes,
it doesn't
absolutely.
take, so it doesn't pressure you in terms of, so even if you, let's say, read the passage at your pace, it won't take, you can manage that one. NMAT passage also shorter than the CAT passage, shorter ones, easy to read. So by and large, my sense is that the preparation for CAT should take care of the preparation for all the examination. And for that, you still have a month away after the
Yes.
CAT. You can look at the previous year's XAT paper to align yourself. So RC to me is more or less taken care of your CAT preparation.
Absolutely. What you're doing for CAT is by and large sufficient. What you definitely will need to do is to focus a little on that RC, which, as we said, is December item. Don't worry about it now. IFT, the only thing you need to do is get used to reading slightly longer passages. But remember, almost all the question RC of IFT are factual specific detail. 4 passages, 4 questions per passage, 16 questions, the general RC paper for IFT. Out of those 16, it is possible to get 12 to 14 marks comfortably without stretching yourself. And one word with respect to IFT, you cannot hope to do well in IFT without getting at least 12 out of 16 correct in RC. You get 12 out of 16 correct in RC, you have done your job, you will get a call. Because this is the section where you can maximize. IIFT RC is extremely important, and if you have to spend extra time in the paper called IIFT, this is where you spend. You don't spend extra time in any other section. Spend here, make sure you do all 4 passages, and you will do well. The rest of the and typically, please remember the sectional cutoff for RC as a standalone is typically going to be about 3-4 marks, but you can get about 14 marks. And RC plus verbal combined, the typical cutoff will be about 10 out of 30, about 33%. But you can, and the verbal portion is not why you'll score. Why you'll not score in verbal portion? Because they will have a synonym, antonym, they'll have figure of speech. There are rules of grammar, something that I don't know at all. Then they have had questions which say, okay, which of the following spellings are incorrect? I don't know. So I have always believed if you have to do well in
Crosswords
this
also,
paper,
GP. Crosswords also they have asked.
crossword was easy, Jijo. I matched the number of letters in the word with the number of blanks and marked the answer based on that. But
Jugaad.
we'll do one session. Yeah, we'll do one session on crosswords of IIFT separately. Okay? But my point is, if I have to pick out one section in IIFT which is going to make or break, or which is going to be responsible for you getting a call or not getting a call, it is RC. It is not verbal VARC. It is reading comprehension.
Specific.
Getting a
I think,
minimum of 10, getting a minimum of 10, preferably 12 to 14, is critical to getting an interview call in IIFT.
and also that is true even with NMAT also. So I think it is
Absolutely.
quite possible to get these 10 questions correct out of this 12. That's what I've seen with respect to NMAT. It does.
Provided you give yourself sufficient time. The
Yeah.
challenge in NMAT is the 3 RC passages are right at the end of the paper. Out of your, how much time is it? 28 minutes. 28
Hmm.
minutes of this section. If you don't leave at least 12 to 15, closer to 15, 16 minutes for RC, you will struggle in this section. Okay. So to my mind, you should give at least 5 minutes per section, per RC passage. Now, out of 28, 5 was about 15, 16 minutes gone. You are left with about 12 to 13 minutes for the remaining.
Yeah, GP. I think everybody comes out on NMAT and say that my vocabulary is what created problem. Vocabulary did not create the problem. You create a problem by spending a lot of time in vocabulary and not given enough time for the reading comprehension. Had you
That's
given
right.
enough time, the reading comprehension would have done well. And then
Absolutely.
this bloody obsession with vocabulary is something that has to stop. I
No,
mean,
not only that, Tijo. What
uh,
happens is you look at the word, you know you don't know the meaning of the word, yet you keep chasing at the word. You try eliminating choices. It is not going to happen. If you don't have knowledge, you will not get the answer. Please move on. And
so
in these 9 questions, if you look at NMAT or vocabulary based questions, these 9 questions should not take you more than 3 to 4 minutes. About
yeah,
two to three questions per minute is what you should be targeting, which means you know the answer, mark. You don't know the answer, mark, move on. You spend a
yeah.
minute on a question, you're dead.
So the whole thing is that because we learned somewhere about root words, you sit and do unnecessarily spend time figuring out, okay, this could be the meaning of the word. You just move on. There
See,
are the
to me, the scoring part of NMAT is one, fill in the blanks, where you can definitely contextual vocabulary will be helpful. Second is the parajumbles because it has got choices. Okay, and third is reading comprehension. If you do well in these three, so
uh,
these 4 parajumble questions, which are the paragraph based. So look at this: 12 of RC and 4 of parajumble, 16 questions. These 16 questions will take you about 20 minutes. If you don't give these 16 questions 20 minutes, you'll not do well in this paper.
so the crux is to just give 8 minutes here, and that's the
Absolutely.
story. So reading comprehension is going to be crucial. Just because you see reading comprehension low here, or this kind of question low, it is what is going to get you marked. Reading comprehension in this paper can be 80% correct. Then even if you get, let's say, 30% for the remaining, you're still fine. Or 40% of the remaining, you're still fine. And 30% because you've lived so long, you're 20-year-old guys, right? 20-year-old girls, you'll know something. Something you'll know. Therefore, that is something that you can do. Paragraph based question. IIFT has paragraph jumble. Sometimes could be paragraph completion. XAT has got critical reasoning. So critical reasoning is something that we probably would not have studied that much for the CAT, but XAT has critical reasoning. NMAT has critical reasoning, but it comes in the logical reasoning
Elastic.
section. So therefore, critical reasoning is a good thing that you can study. So imagine if you study for critical reasoning now, for the NMAT, obviously it is going to help you with respect to your CAT also, because critical listening is a good skill to have in reading comprehension.
It will
Also going to
it
help
will
there.
help in reading comprehension.
Yeah. And NMAT is paragraph jumble. So your paragraph jumble, we have something in the CAT, we have done paragraph jumble, we type in the answer question. And here we have got options. Right. So you've got options. So this is something that I think that you guys can do well. This we have discussed, which is vocabulary and grammar. This we have discussed. This is what I was telling. I think the roughly cutoff here would be somewhere here, which means
Yes.
I can actually knock it off with this. I can actually Even if, let's say, for me to do well in NMAT, I do here. The key would be to look at these things in about 8 minutes.
That's right.
And this will be a minute each for your paragraph jumble question, and about 16 minutes you give for NMAT. The paragraph jumble question will not come in order; it will come somewhere jumbled here and there. So that's where you can actually name. So vocabulary, yes, if you want to study, you study. I think one other thing that they should look at is grammar. GP grammar is manageable. So let me actually give you the type of question that is asked. So synonym, antonyms, these are the dangerous ones. Either you know or you don't know.
These are very easy to handle, provided you have clarity.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many people consider themselves to be Gautam Buddha and they want to just ponder on the question and get the answer.
It's good. You make the decision quickly. The 3 seconds. I know. I don't know. How many words will I know in this whole world? Whatever we try and do, it will be there. I'm guessing that your preparation for a CAT, you're reading stuff and building up your skill set, and it's going to happen. But sentence correction and spot the error in IIFT, I have to identify an error. I don't have to correct the paper. I have to identify error. So the grammar is, there are about 10, I think, errors. I don't know. Some people have a 7 list, 8 list, 10 list. You should know 10 errors. Subject verb agreement error, time sequence error, or preposition errors, and pronoun errors.
So it's a finite number. Unlike vocabulary, it's a finite number you're dealing with. If it's a finite number, it can be handled, and that finite number is a single digit number. Worst case, it is 10 types of errors. Most of the time, people say 7, 8 kind of errors. So we'll look at those. If you know parallelism, irrespective of the kind of question it comes. Okay. So I agree with you completely. Grammar is what you should work on. You could also look at the old papers of CAT, XAT, IIFT, or wherever you get old material for spot the error kind of question. And also you could look at your study material. Mug up all those, or go through all those spot the error question, not once, but 2 to 3 times. You'll remember most of them then.
NMAT used to have synonym, antonym, answer, but I think last year they did not ask synonym, antonym. In fact, GP was saying fill in the blanks. I get context. I think something is written, I get context. It's about then reading this particular sentence, guessing in your mind, in your language, what could be the word, and then pick in the options. And if you don't know some words and don't know the meaning of the word, I think this is something that can be manageable, but not every time. But it's not like blankly what is the meaning of a word. But then an analogy is the 2 things related to each other. How is the third thing related to each other? So that is another one. So in these 2 things, there could be a lot of these speed breakers. Be careful. Then you have preposition and spot error, which is grammar. You look at spot error there. Snap is the one who has been not fixed with this. Even IIFT for that matter. Idioms, figures of speech, onomatopoeia. What is that? Okay, so you have figures of speech. I don't know why they ask parts of speech, fill in the blanks. So the point is get this. Snap is an examination. Snap does not have sectional cutoff, no GP?
No sectional cutoff. It's the overall score which is important.
Yeah, Snap overall score is important. There, why should? So the point is that the reason why I'm not suggesting that studying for vocabulary is a bad idea. That's not what I'm suggesting. I think studying for vocabulary, the input and output is not worth it. And the worst thing that I would recommend at this point in time is that you should not worry about it. You have to look at what is the best way. If your vocabulary is good, great. I'm guessing that your preparation for the CAT has helped you build your vocabulary. But the real so the verbal plan of action, GP, would be RC. You're already doing, so continue what your CAT prep. I think we'll have to look at some longer passages and shorter portion of passages for this one. So this is from IIFT past papers, right. Pick up one syllable and solve. Shorter passage, NMAT official guide could be one that you can pick up. And then other thing that you want to look at is grammar, and won't take much time. I think there's about 10 rules, maybe about 20 hours is what you need to spend to learn how to identify errors and solve the questions. So, yeah. Okay. Did I miss anything, GP?
No, I think that covers everything. The only thing is XAT is pending, but XAT is something we should discuss only in December.
Yeah. If you start taking XAT now, maybe you'll go bonkers. XAT after December, there's one whole month. So basically, in that 1 month that you have CAT, don't sit and now worry about. I have to study for NMAT, I have to study for this. That should all happen now. And the most important thing, instead of actually looking at vocabulary, the where you have to focus, GP, I think you will agree with this, is logical reasoning.
Absolutely. In fact, if
So,
there's one section in NMAT and IFT and SNAP which is significantly different from CAT and XAT, both of them for that matter, it is this section. Look at the kind of questions which are written out here. And IFT, NMAT have almost all these kind of questions available. Not that in IFT all the types will come in a single paper, but in 1 year there will be one kind of question, another year, for 2 3 years there will be coding, decoding, then next year the coding, decoding will vanish. So all these varieties available, that is the critical thing to understand, and you need to prepare for all of them. And fortunately, whether it's IIFT or NMAT or SNAP, all three of them have similar, and this is where you should be working rather than vocabulary or anything else.
yeah, so a logical set-based question is what we have used to. Small set and the question is asked. But then you actually see individual questions, direction, sequence series, coding, decoding, calendars, number puzzle, syllogism, statement assumption, conclusion, strong weak arguments, cause and effect, course of action, critical reasoning, all these. And you actually look at CAT. I've counted DI is also here, but that's fine. XAT has not asked logical reasoning in the recent years. Analytical reasoning question. That logical reasoning is critical reasoning, and that critical reasoning is a part of your English section. So in one sense, the verbal reasoning is this blue. You can actually see NMAT having 18 of that questions out of the 36 questions, out of which a significant chunk, at least I believe 8 of them at least, will be critical reasoning there in MAT 36. This is going to be important. Critical reasoning is important when it comes to NMAT, the short critical reasoning ones. Then you have this 5-question analytical reasoning and 13 questions are set based. SNAP has got 15 questions single analytical reasoning. This can change, vary a lot. IFT, like GP said, it can vary a lot. GP, your
Yeah. Essentially, if I look at NMAT, the first thing, those sets will typically come in the end. I don't know why they do it, but the RC passes are in the end, the DI sets are in the end, the LR sets in the end. So please make sure you have sufficient time for these kind of data sets, those grouped questions or the sets. Okay? Single questions first and sets later is the basic rule that NMAT seems to be following. Okay? Second thing is, when it comes to NMAT, what I have realized is, if I look at last year, me and many other career launcher faculty took the paper, and we took the paper in multiple ways. In each of the 3 sections, what I did was I deliberately got a few questions incorrect. So as I said, in LR in the middle, I got 10 odd questions wrong, or just marked the answers randomly. I did the same thing in English in the end and Quant at the beginning. In each of the 3 cases, I realized I think I had what was my total? It was some 240, 255 or something with all this jugglery. So there were about 30 questions out of 108. 10 questions per section, which was random marking in each of the sections. What that tells you, if you do about 25 genuine attempts in NMAT in each section, it was good enough based on the last year's paper. So first of all, stop thinking of NMAT as 36 questions. Tell yourself there are 2 kinds of questions. One which have to be genuine attempt, one which I look at the question, I know I don't know what to do, just mark an answer and move on, so that you don't waste time. As long as you can do 25 genuine attempts in the section, you are fine. So now please ask yourself, what is my strength? RC is my strength. I need to create time for RC in the end. Sets is my strength. I need to make sure I have time for it in the end. And same thing for DI also. Okay? So please focus in NMAT, whether it is in the reasoning section also similarly, to make sure you don't get stuck. You look at the question, it is a sequence series. We end up wasting a lot of time. If the sequence or the series or the logic does not strike you in 20 seconds, it is unlikely to strike you in the next 2 minutes also. Don't waste time, move on. So as far as NMAT is concerned, the reasoning section, I would say moving on is a very, very, very important task, because this is where there's the maximum possibility of wasting time and getting stuck and not having sufficient time for the end of the section. But yes, just coming back to the kind of question, IFT, NMAT, SNAP, similar kind of question, bank PO kind of data sets, and that reasoning is something you should be doing. The Maharashtra CT reasoning also is very useful for this. The visual reasoning does not come, but if you remove the visual reasoning part, rest of the stuff is something which should be important for here. Okay. Secondly, when
Yeah.
you look at IIFT, just a couple of words on IIFT.
Sure.
IIFT again has, last year was a slightly different paper, but typically the 15 odd questions of reasoning, what they would do is 2-3 questions of each type, 2-3 questions of these of coding, decoding, couple of questions of directions. So each type of question would be 2-3, 5 to 6 questions or 7 questions will be in set. So 50% of the paper in sets and 50% of single question on 4-5 different types of questions. That is the way you'd be, which means you can always say, okay, I don't know this kind of question, let me skip this and move on to the next one. You will not lose sufficient if you say, for example, if I take an extreme example, input output in IIFT, it normally does not come, but if it comes, it will be 2 questions. So if you say input output, I'm not comfortable, you can leave input output completely. From IIFT perspective, not from NMAT perspective.
So this is a question. So if you look at the set question, circular arrangements, grouping and arrangement, games and tournaments, okay. I hope that you would, of course, you would have done circular arrangement as well. Grouping arrangement. Other thing that you see in NMAT is input output. Sometimes you see in IIFT as well. So there are certain types of questions that you need to know. Input output. You just need to understand the logic. If you know the logic, it's fine. Then comes all this coding, decoding, puzzle. In NMAT, you get Venn diagram and puzzle, clocks and calendar. This is analytical reasoning, single question. And then you have these verbal reasoning ones, stable assumptions, course of action, syllogism, critical reasoning, strong weak arguments. And that you can see here as well. So these things, so when you look at statement assumption, statement conclusion, strong weak arguments, then you have course of action, cause and effect as another question, critical reasoning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and critical reasoning, it will have a lot of different types itself. So I think that this would all put together, I'm just counting about 10 chapters.
Yes.
And then here you can start with coding, decoding, directions, puzzle, familiarity, another about 10 chapters analytical reasoning, plus including all the input, output. About 20 sort of chapters is what you need to cover, which you have not done. And this is going to be absolutely crucial when it comes to all the examinations. This is where the game is going to change. And therefore, this is what you need to spend. And it does not require too much of effort. It's just that you should know how to solve this question. Multiply by 2 is about 40 hours. 2 hours, about 40 hours of effort. GP, what I'm thinking, maybe about 20, 30, 40 hours of effort.
Yeah. See, to me, what is important is, if it is NMAT, you're planning to take, whether it is December or October, does not matter. You start doing it now. One more reason, if your statement assumption logic gets cleared, it will help you in reading comprehension. If you get the hang of strong and weak argument, it will help you in reading comprehension. All these statement, the question types which are written out here on the verbal reasoning part, statement assumption, course of action, critical reasoning, all of them will be helpful in your comprehension. Please look upon this as comprehension preparation. Many students come back and say, I get stuck in inferential questions. This is inferential questions only. So please focus here. This will be good for you from an RC perspective also. So even if you want to take NMAT in now December, we said you should start preparing now, and this is where you should start preparing from. The analytical reasoning part, many of you will still do it well because it is closer to what you're doing for CAT. It is the verbal reasoning part which is going to be a challenge. So please start working on this area. This is what will be a difference between a good score and not a good score in NMAT reasoning.
Yeah. So logical reasoning is what you need to prep. So like GP said, even if let's say you're looking at taking in December, September, you should do this, right? It's going to also help you with respect to the areas with in CAT as well. So how to prepare? I'm sure that you have. If let's say I'm sure that you are enrolled into programs where people will help you. You can also probably watch videos in the YouTube or GP. I'm sure that we are also coming up with certain things to help people for preparation.
Yeah. So all students who are enrolled for the MBA program, which is for them, NMAT would be included. So they will be getting sessions or lessons for that and material. The students who are not enrolled for MBA are enrolled only for CAT. They will obviously need to look at, or students who are with us only for test series, if they want, they can pick up a program. We'll be launching one in January. Or not January, sorry, September.
September, okay.
1st September is when we'll be launching the program. I don't know why it came out January, but okay.
Yeah. GK, GP, GK. What to do?
What to do? First is static GK, ignore. It is similar to vocabulary, which
Yeah.
means that is infinite. You don't know what to cover, what not to cover. And IIFT, out of the 20 GK questions, if are there, they're about, okay, 9 questions of static GK. These 9 questions will be 6 different areas. There'll be one book and author. There'll be one prize winner somewhere. There'll be one something. So to mug up for so much of data for 6-7 questions, 6-7 different areas, you don't know what is going to happen. Okay. To me, the best way to prepare for GK is to focus on current affairs. When you are brushing up your current affairs, some amount of static keeps on happening on its own. Okay. So when you come to know something about the current, whatever you are reading, it will give some background to the past also, and that is where the static will keep getting improved. So static and current affairs improvement is a process which you need to start now. Start with the daily newspaper. If you have not started already, please do so. In addition to this, what you need to do is remember that IIFT GK, as I said, the cutoff is 1 question to 4 questions. So if you can get 5 correct answers, you should not take chances. And if you have got 7-8 correct answers, you can be reasonably sure you are done. Mark an answer only if you are definite about it. When it comes to that, it does not matter, frankly. It does not matter because it is not counted by anyone. No one bothers about it. I think that is giving it just for the heck of it. No one is wanting to remove something which is already there because it will be questioned. Why have you removed GK? So no one wants to answer that question. So it is possibly continuing. Okay. And in any case, there's no negative marking. So mark an answer to everyone. You'll get 4-5 marks. That is good enough. Okay. But when it comes to preparation, in addition to newspaper, if you open up your aspiration account,
So let me
you
actually do that, GP.
okay, sure.
So when you go to your aspiration account, if you scroll down, you see GK zone. So when you click on the GK zone, you come to this particular page. So in this particular page, a few things that you can see. One that you can see is there is what is known as a monthly Manthan. So if I click on this monthly Manthan,
Yeah.
so there is a page that gets loaded. So this is that document, which is the monthly compendium. This starts from, this is July 2021. This has got 181 pages worth of information on polity and governance. And then you go here, economics and finance, science and technology, ecology and environment, sports, awards, personal news, miscellaneous, important days, followed with questions and key explanation. Each thing is being put up, so we have every single news that has happened in that month is given here. And if you go down once again, oh yeah, if you go all the way down, oops, wait a minute, you've got quiz 350 quiz. So this is something that you can do. Then let me actually go here. So every day when you read newspaper, you can come here and check. We have things that is updated daily. So this is a news update. Daily news update is what you can see here. This is a short news update that is updated daily here. So, and then not only the news update, we can actually see a test here. So 16th of August, weekly wise test. So yesterday, 16th of August, you can take a test here as well. So what you can do with respect to the resources, first, of course, read the newspaper like GP is saying. The daily come and do. I think you can start probably from September because the current affairs. December is exam, no? So September. So somewhere now you can actually start. And one important thing is that you doing this on a daily basis. Please do understand in the month of January, February, March, your interview is going to start. And if you have this habit now, it is going to be useful in the interview. Imagine you actually do all the effort and then you go to the interview, then you can't answer current affairs questions or some questions that is being asked of you, and then you're going, I don't know what's going on, and then what is the point in putting in all the effort? So this not only helps in your preparation for the GK, or all resources available to you, not only help in the preparation for GK, but also going to help in the interview as well. GP.
Yeah, I think that's what they need to do. Newspapers, Manthan, or let's say daily news supplement, daily quiz, and the quiz and Manthan to me is extremely important because the daily quiz whatever you do, when you do the Manthan quiz, a revision will happen. You'll find some similar question and you'll be able to see which ones you can remember and which one you need to brush up. So if you do this much, I think you'll be reasonably safe. In addition to this, closer to the papers, we'll come out with a compendium for IFT and XAT GK, which will be shared with you online, and you can again do final revision of the stuff given in the GK compendium.
Yeah. There is, so your GK prep is something that we already mentioned, is that, like GP said, you read newspapers regularly, and that should be a habit. Follow the daily news, do the compendium, take test, and then things should be fine. There is XAT decision making. GP, there is one section that is there in that. Anything you want to talk about this section?
My favorite section, because I've always enjoyed this section, and essentially people confuse this with reading comprehension. There's not reading comprehension. Yes, you need to read and comprehend, but you need to read and comprehend everything. You need to read and comprehend the data interpretation data sets also. That does not make it reading comprehension. So that is the first thing. Second, there are certain decision criteria which you need to worry about. So every data set you will have to decipher what you think is the decision criteria. Based on that, you have to take a decision. So a situation is given, a problem is given, and from this data, pick out what is the criteria based on which you should be marking the decision. This is something which you should again worry about only in the month of December. Before that, don't worry about it. But at that point of time, you could again to put in a small sales pitch, enroll for DM1000. That's a program that Jijo and I have created for decision making, because this is a problem area for most of the students, and hence we came out with this program. Okay?
Yeah. So like GB said, decision making is that what is the main cause of the situation being unmanageable? This is not a reading comprehension one. You have to understand the problem. You are going behind it, and there is no pressure in reading. This looks nothing like a XAT passage. It's very easy. A pastor eaten at a restaurant with a troop of 10 and his family, and something happened. You could probably pause the video, try it yourself. We're not going to solve it. We'll worry about decision making post CAT. Right. So summary of prep plan, starting with English. So what we are saying for a XAT is that at this point in time, not worry too much. This is what you take up as post CAT prep. Currently, whatever is a CAT prep should take care of that. For IIFT, one thing that we are seeing is that grammar is going to be useful. And the second thing is that long passages or the past IIFT passages, what we look at the past IIFT papers. Again, here, look at...
Just remember that IIFT passages are factual and specific detailed questions. So don't go too much for the inferential kind of passages.
Just pick up the past CAT IIFT passages, no?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is available, and let me also share that also. Sometimes people don't know where you can find these things. So when you go to your aspiration, you get this thing called study material here. If you click on study material, you see previous year's papers. You click on previous year's paper, you see CAT, IIFT, XAT papers. You can see IIFT papers from 2007 to 2019. You can click here. This will zip you can see IIT paper zip will come. It has got solutions, the PDF solution, the question as well as solution. So that's something that you can pick there. Okay. So then you have so NMAT is grammar plus your. I'm also looking at, I'm counting paragraph jumble that you'll do with respect to when you take the mock test and stuff, you'll do that. And of course in NMAT, please pick up official guide and pick from there as well. Snap at this point in time, whatever you've done here should take care of this GP, right?
Yes.
Logic, that is critical reasoning. I'm putting critical reasoning there because XAT has called critical reasoning as logical reasoning. That's something that you need. But that critical reasoning at this point in time, you can prep with respect to NMAT, you can prep there. And this is going to be the crucial thing for all these examinations, wherein you are prepping for all these things together will make sense. So all those single verbal reasoning would be very crucial. Analytical reasoning question, single analytical reasoning question, and the type that comes out. This probably require about 40 hours of prep. Once you include critical reasoning there, then this can come post your this one. And data interpretation, whatever you're doing for CAT, would take care of that other things. So here, I think that what is also needed in this case, maybe here as well. The here as well is about calculations
Yes.
base or the standard DI is what you have to do. GK and others is not here. GK and others we already discussed. Read newspapers and go through month in and pick the daily test. Uh, Once you read the newspaper, that daily the news that is news update is given, that is snapshot of it. So this month in and this plus a compendium should take care of that GP. Anything that I missed here?
No, I think that this covers everything. The only thing which is left is the mocks. When should
Yeah.
you take mocks, and what papers should you be taking? First of all, as far as the papers are concerned, please make sure. For example, IIFT is 5th December. CAT is 29th, 28th. Sorry,
Eight.
yeah.
Yeah.
So 28th, whatever happens, 29th onwards, you have to go towards IIFT. So 29, 30, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. 5 days, 5 papers. They could be a mixture of mocks and old IIFT papers. Okay, you could say, okay, my suggestion would be 2016 onwards, 5 papers of old IIFT papers and mocks is what you should be looking at. You can do some of them along the way, along with your CAT preparation, and keep 5 papers for the end. A couple of old papers, let's say the last 2 years papers, you could keep for yourself for this period, and 3 mocks. So 3 mocks and two old IIFT papers. Keep it for 29 November to 5th to 3rd December. The reason is there's a speed test. You need to change your orientation. So 5 days, every day you do one paper, you analyze the paper, identify what went right, wrong, and so on, do some work, next day take another paper. And all these papers should be taken exactly at the time slot of IIFT. Similarly, when you decide to take NMAT, give yourself the 5 days before NMAT, take 5 papers back to back. Get used to taking NMAT. NMAT, remember, also allows you to choose the sequence in which you want to attempt the paper. For example, I always attempt the paper as English first, next is reasoning, third I go to Quant. But you may want to do Quant first and English in the end, that's perfectly fine. Some of you may want to start with logical reasoning. So decide what is the sequence of section you want and accordingly start taking the papers. Okay. So similarly, when you look at XAT, between CAT and XAT, there's ample time. Between IIFT and XAT, there's ample time. You look at taking mocks and old papers of XAT only after your IIFT is done. Till 5th, don't worry about IIFT. 6th onwards, till 5th, don't worry about XAT. 6th onwards is when you look at XAT. So the month of December, 6th December onwards is a XAT focus. If you are taking SNAP at that point of time, take a few papers of SNAP on the way and be done with it.
Yeah, and if you just snap, you don't know what is going to happen. I think you just go take the snap because you by and large covered everything, I think.
That's right.
So the thing that I want to say is that the month that is there, October will be too close. I think here is where if we can think about September or late this particular part is where you can start looking at ensuring that the logical reasoning plus that grammar actual thing is taken care of. This all you have to do is you don't have to put in too much effort. Pick up, let's say, one day in a week to dedicate to that. That particular part here, just 1 day to a week, and after a certain part, then if you have got your NMAT, let's say date here, of course, then date here and there, then you are going to take, like GP said, mock test here as well, plan it accordingly. But the thing is that whether you are taking NMAT in December or taking NMAT in October, please do ensure that September is when the prep happens. So therefore, what then happens is by the time you're in October, you know logical reasoning covered, reading comprehension is covered, your data interpretation is by and large covered. Every sort of area is covered, and the extra bit of effort that you have to do is just with respect to the logical reasoning, and that too those single question. And then if you take the mock test and be sensible, I think things should be fine, GP.
Yeah, I think that's like okay. So I guess we've covered everything that we wanted to. And so we can close the session here, Gijo.
Yes, and we'll let us know what other thing that you want us to do, and we'll do that as well. Let us know in the comment box.
One thing that we will do is closer to each of these exams, the strategy for each of the exams we'll talk about separately. You could also look at my blog post, my blog gpkafunda.in. There, the strategy for IIFT and XAT is given. But look at that when you are ready for it. Okay, you may still want to go through it just to get an idea. That's fine. But once you decide that now I am preparing for this exam, please go through it again.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.